Good morning, everyone. I'm Stu Paterson, a technical sales engineer here at Symetrix. Today, we're going to talk about file management on the control server. Currently, there are two types of files that you can manage, and both are tied to control screens, fonts, and SymView files. Now, SymView is simple, and the actual configuration file and the actual configuration file you export from Composer, though font files and their management is a bit trickier and the focus of this webinar. So let's move forward. Bar controls, as you can see, is a different font from Jukebox Override. Pair Now and Volume are completely different. Text fonts as well. So I have four different fonts other than the standard Arial. Well, even Arial, come to find out, isn't quite standard. It is a licensed font, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So when you go to export this control screen to the control server, it's just like exporting to a T5. It's just like exporting to SymView for controls, for PC, I mean, with a little bit of a difference. You are usually hit with, at the end of the process, this warning. So it's really just a warning that says that the composer could not find the five fonts on the selected control server that are used in the exported control screens. That's just telling you and warning you that when you're exporting to the control server for use from any of your wireless devices, they may not display these fonts correctly and may actually pull a standard HTML font. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about fonts in general when you're exporting. Fonts are part of your OS, whether you download them from the internet or purchase them and then install them, or what is currently embedded in your OS. There's licensing involved with this. One of the reasons why you may or may not have, as it stands, without file or font management, you may not have these fonts display correctly is the licensing portion. So if you don't have them installed on another computer, they won't show up correctly, and B, we can't technically as a company export to the control server, because the control server is technically a computer. So we're not allowed as a company to do that standard. So that's left to the end user to upload fonts. And that's the reason. It gets very, very sticky with licensing. So if you've ever seen this warning, this is why. Fonts are very tricky. You may not think it, but it's very tricky with licensing, especially Arial. Arial is an embedded font, and technically speaking, we can't use Arial. We can use an HTML equivalent that is not Arial, but looks kind of like it. So that's the reason why you also get a missing font as in Arial narrow as well. Okay, so how do you get through this? Well, first and foremost, you need to make a note of, okay, what are the missing fonts that you've used? Obviously, you've selected these fonts in your control screen. Of course, you know which ones they are. Well, there's also a difference in file names. So within Windows, the file name may be completely different, or a weirdly titled font name that is not the same as what you see as the actual font name. So file name and font name are completely different, and we'll get to that. All right, so how do you take care of this? Well, you do so in the administration account of your control server. So you would log in, and this is after you've exported. So you've exported your control screen to the control server, and now you need to navigate to the menu, and you go to management and then files. So once you've gone to that page, you can see the files, and we'll actually get to that in just a second. So this is just how you get there, but it's a management page on the control server admin account. So without much further ado, let's just jump right into it because it's kind of complex. So let's go ahead and escape here. All right. So here we are, and this is the end user view. So this is the end user, what they can see. So let's go ahead and click on the sim view. Here's my exported control screen. Actually, you know what? Let's go backwards a little bit. So let's go back to Composer and take a look at what we can see in Composer. So here's our designed control screen. And here we go. Let me get rid of these. There. So here's I made it simpler so these text can stand out a bit. So as you can see, I have different fonts for these labels. Now, these may or may not show up correctly on the control server, depending on what you're viewing from. Whether it's another computer or your own computer, or if it's on a wireless device, which is the reason why we must use file management. So every device has the option of pulling these texts or these fonts. So I said previously, the other file you may manage is the actual SimView export itself, and that's just simply doing this. Right-click, export to SimView, and then choosing the control server as your destination. So once you click through, and it's this page right here where you name the file name, that's what you're managing on the control server. So let's go ahead. I've already done that. And now let's pop back here. Okay, so now this is the end user view. But again, let's start with the management portion. So let's go back to the admin account real quick. So like I said previously, you go to menu, management, and then files. And we can see the files that have been uploaded to the control server. So this particular control server has 4 SimView exports along with the file. Oh, I misspelled that. Look at that. I wonder how I'm going to fix that. Well, let me go ahead and click on it, and then I can change that to an actual spelling of the word management. All right. So now, just for the sake of argument, if during the export process I misspelled it like I did, I can just go back here and change it without having to export or re-export the control screen. I just rename it directly. Or for the sake of argument, I could also delete it, and I could delete these 4. Again, I did mention it's very simple with the SimView files themselves. So you can delete and edit the names without re-exporting. That's the simple part. So let's go back and talk about fonts. So the fonts. So right now, these are the fonts that have been uploaded to the control server. As you can see, I have Orbitron, Bold, Orbitron, blah, blah, blah. None of them are in my current control screen. These are part of other control screens that have been uploaded to this control server. So I need to go back. Okay, so which fonts did I need again? So let's go ahead and go to export to SimView, control server, and let's get to the end of the process. There we go. So there's my error saying, hey, these are the missing fonts that may not show up correctly. I'm not really worried about Arial in this case, but I'm worried about Blackadder, Bauhaus, Bondschrift, and Berlin Sans because those aren't typical fonts. So the first thing I need to do is upload it. Now, I chose these particular fonts because they needed to be installed separately. Now, ostensibly, of course, you can't use fonts in your control screen until they're installed. So this isn't telling me that they're missing on the computer that you're exporting from. They're just missing from the control server. And in this case, they're actually missing on this computer because I designed this in another computer. So I'm going to go here. And another thing that I may mention with fonts and then exporting to the control server, do not do it directly from the Windows font folder. And I'll show you where that resides. So if you open up, let's go to Files. Let's just start here. So you were opening up Windows and you go to this PC. Okay, so it's on your root drive, which is Windows, your C drive, and it's going to be under Windows. And we're navigating to the font folder, the default font folder of Windows. So, and then here you see it in the Windows folder under fonts. Do not upload from this folder. It can cause problems because this is a protected file path. This is a protected folder. So what you should do is copy the fonts that you want to upload and put them in your My Documents under a font folder. And these are already installed, of course. So these are already installed. So, as a matter of fact, let me do this. So I have told you that the ones, I'm going to go ahead and install these guys real quick. 1 second. Let's go ahead. I'm going to install bond shrift. Bear with me. So I have them available to upload. All right. Yeah, let's do this for all items. Now, when you install, you don't want to install in place. So I'm going to show you. So these files are in My Documents. Don't ever install from your My Documents. You just want to drag these over and then drop them in. Because wherever you install it from, it's going to be locked, which means you can't delete them from your documents. So always install here, but copy to another folder when you're uploading to the control server. So let's pretend we already have these installed. And here's my folder. I'm going to delete these. So here's my folder that is waiting that I'm going to use for uploading. So let's right click on bond shrift and copy and then paste here. Yep, you may get that error. It says, hey, it's already here, but that's because it's a true font family. That's fine. All right. So let's do the same thing with, let's see, Blackadder. Copy and paste. You can't see it on my screen, but it's on another screen. So Bauhaus, right click, copy. Same thing, gonna paste it over here. Berlin Sands, right click, copy. And what was the other one? Audio wide, that's right. Copy and paste. Was there one other? I don't remember. Let's take a look at the, okay, so Blackadder I have, Bauhaus I did, Bondschrift, Berlin Sands. Okay, so I did all 4 that I needed. Audio wide actually isn't part of it. So I don't have to worry about that. All right, so now let's go back to the control server. Now we want to upload these fonts that I just copied to the folder that I'm going to upload from. So in this case, that folder is in My Documents. So let's upload, choose file. And actually, they aren't in My Documents. They're in a separate drive, but that's fine. I can navigate to these fonts. So file management and go to fonts. And here's the fonts that I'm going to upload. And hit open. And 7 files. Yeah, that looks about right. Let's go ahead and upload all of them. And they've successfully uploaded. Well, I'm not done yet because remember what I said earlier. File name and font name are different. They're not the same thing. So in order to get the actual font name that you're utilizing, you need to be in the font library again. So this is in Windows root drive, the C drive in Windows and font. And you need to hover over the particular ones that you want and then right click and go to properties. Properties tells you the actual name of that type of font, whichever one you're using. And which one am I using? I'm using condensed. Okay, so I'm using condensed. Let's go back. Okay, bond schrift condensed, but it's not bold. So where is it? Bond schrift condensed. There we go. Right click. And this is just bond schrift TTF. Okay, so we want to go back here, find bond schrift, select, and we want to leave the file name alone. We want to change the font name to exactly what control server is looking for, which is bond schrift condensed. I spell it correctly? I hope so. Let's take a look. Bond schrift, BAH, yes. Oh, there's an S. I forgot an H. It's very important that you get the spelling correct. All right. So what do we want? We want bond schrift condensed. It's spelled exactly what control server is looking for, and then hit save. And then font style, that's going to be dependent on what you want. In my case, everything was normal. The font weight was not bolded. It was just normal. So hit save. All right. You'll notice the file is still the same. However, the font name has changed. You can, for the sake of upkeep and for management, you can rename the file name if you like. I tend to leave it exactly how Windows sees it, or the file name, just for that purpose. So that's been uploaded. So let's go back and let's re-export. Let's go back. Let's go ahead and finish it. You'll notice now it's not looking for the missing font. So it knows, I mean, that font is now on the control server, and the list has now narrowed down to the other 5 that currently are not on the control server. Pretty simple and complex at the same time, right? All right. Oh, while Chris is typing his question, I want to make it very clear that, again, this ensures that whoever is utilizing that control screen on whatever device has access to the fonts. Sometimes it'll actually work, like somebody on one PC, like, why can't you upload fonts from the Windows folder? Because of permissions. So it becomes sticky with permissions because it's a protected folder. So the Windows font folder, depending on which font you're trying to upload, it could create errors. And sometimes it'll actually work, but it won't upload the correct file, or the file itself is flagged to not be used. So you never want to upload from the Windows font folder, the actual Windows font folder. You want to copy and paste the fonts that are already installed into a separate folder. Generally, like on my desktop alone, here I'll show you. On my desktop, this is not my desktop, this is the studio desktop. So I have it in my documents, and in the composer file, I created, where you have Dante devices, designs, intelligent devices, etc. I created a font folder. I literally created a folder and named it fonts. And that's where my fonts are copied to, that I upload to the control server. And again, these are just what I'm uploading to the control server that's already currently installed on my machine. Do not do the opposite. Do not have fonts here in this folder that you don't have installed on your machine, and do not install here. Do not right click and install. That will cause problems. They have to be in both places. Exactly. Now, let me make that clear. So you have the same font. It's installed on your computer in the Windows font folder, but it's also in the font folder that you create in your My Documents or wherever you want to place it, because you're uploading from there. You're not installing, you're not doing anything. They're just there to let you know these are what should be on the control server. And you can even drill it down to a job folder. So if it's a particular job, you have the site file in a job folder, you have the fonts for that particular site file, sim images, blah, whatever. just make it part of that install package. After uploading the font to this control server, you still had to change the name to match. Why? Because when you upload to the control server, you're uploading the file. You're uploading the file, but the control server doesn't interpret the file. It doesn't pull the metadata, whereas Windows does. Windows pull, and when you're exporting from Windows to the control server. The Windows and Composer knows that you're exporting the font to the control server, or trying to, but it's not pulling the metadata because it can't, because of licensing issues. So we're not pulling the metadata. So after you upload it, you have to rename it because the control server is not pulling or not saving the metadata. So there's no metadata any longer with that font once you've uploaded it to the control server. Just font name. Well, I'm lying. That's not an accurate statement. There's still metadata, but it's just the font name versus the file name. So, but not the rest of the font metadata. So that's why you have to rename it. So on the control server, when you're exporting it to the control server, the control string to the control server, it can see that file is already on the control server and go, okay, it's waiting for me on the control server, the file as in the font. So I will finish the process of exporting this control screen. The control server will accept it and associate that font with the control screen. Okay? Does that make? Yeah, it's very complex. That's why this webinar was very focused on font management with the control server, because it is unnecessarily complex. Well, I shouldn't say unnecessarily. It's just because of licensing, it becomes complex. If it weren't a licensing issue, and I mean licensing with Windows itself, then we wouldn't have this song and dance. We could just directly upload along to the control server. And then you may ask, well, why doesn't that matter with SymView for PC or the T5? Well, the T5 isn't a computer. It's a connected device that is utilizing what you've uploaded to your DSP, so that doesn't matter. And then SymView for PC is pulling what has been programmed into it, and it's being run in another Windows environment. So we don't have to deal with, hey, you're outside the Windows environment into another computer OS. So that's why. I hate to, sorry to focus on just the two people. It's probably everything. It's a April Fool's joke, but it's no joke, as I said. Fonts are no joke. Remember, kids. All right. Well, if that's the case, I was going to go ahead and close our webinar for today. Thank you very much for attending. Appreciate that. I hope you guys have a pleasant weekend. If you have Good Friday off, if not, happy Easter as well. And take care. And join us for our next webinar on this Tuesday. It's going to be regarding custom symbol fonts, which is a different subject than font management. So custom symbol fonts. These are fonts that you create from images and then utilize those. So if you're interested, go ahead and join me on Tuesday next week. All right. And with that, thank you very much and have a pleasant weekend.